Hello and welcome to Swiftly Spoken, a fan-made Taylor Swift podcast in which we analyse her artistry, including her lyricism, music videos, and full album retrospectives. We are your hosts Cameron and Lisa, and in this week's episode we're going to be discussing all of the original songs that Taylor has written for movie soundtracks. So with the recent announcement of the new solo-written song Carolina for the film Where the Crawdads Sing, we thought that it would be really cool to go back through all of the songs that Taylor has written in featured films. So either songs that were written with the plot of the movie in mind, or songs that Taylor went back through her vaults for previously unreleased songs and picking them to then be included in the movie soundtrack. So we're going to start off by going in chronological order of all the films, and then we'll individually go through all of the songs, talk about their creation, what movies they were included in, and then our thoughts and feelings about them.
So first up, we have Crazier, which was featured in the Hannah Montana The movie back in 2009. So this was a song that Taylor didn't originally write for the movie, but we thought we'd still include it in the list because it is only featured on the Hannah Montana The movie soundtrack. It's nowhere else in Taylor's discography as of now. So it was written by Taylor and Robert Ellis Orrell and produced by Taylor and Nathan Chapman. The song's appearance in the film came about after the filmmakers approached Taylor asking her for some music for the film. What happened is they wanted a song that was perfect to fall in love to and kind of like a country waltz. So what Taylor did is, though she didn't write it intentionally for the film, she sent them Crazier and they basically loved it because it fit that description. Moreover, Taylor also offered to perform the song in the film herself, making a cameo. The film director Peter Chelson was very impressed by Taylor's song and also her performance for the film. In Taylor's words, she told Great American Country that she wrote Crazier back when she was 13, so the song really wasn't written for the movie, but she found that it would be perfect for the movie because it was a reflection of what she thought love was supposed to be. She was ultimately very excited that the song was playing when the main characters in the movie have a really big moment, and that was the background song. That scene was then taken from the film and released as a music video for Crazier.
So the song charted at number 17 on the Billboard Hot 100 in the United States, and the song was also praised by critics who named it as one of the best songs on the soundtrack. So a critic said that he incredibly enjoyed Taylor's cameo and actually said that Swift was so talented that she makes Cyrus seem bland in comparison. Taylor's kind of appearance in the film was really praised, the song had a lot of praise and clearly did very well on the charts. So yeah, what are your thoughts on Crazier? How do you feel about it? Love it? Hate it? Indifferent? This was our first kind of taste of Taylor soundtrack. So yeah, how are you feeling about it?
I think that the really good thing about this song is that it showed that Taylor knew how to take the movie into account when making or choosing songs that she wanted to include in it, because it does fit perfectly. It's really, really good in the film. Yeah, I do quite like the song. It perfectly describes the moment that the characters are going through. And yeah, I enjoyed it. How about you?
Yeah, no, I really, really love Crazier. It's kind of one of my favourite songs from the kind of debut Fearless kind of universe. I just have always really, really loved it. So yeah, I think that you're right that it was kind of absolutely perfect for the Hannah Montana movie. And if you didn't know that it was, written kind of years before, you would definitely think, oh, this was written, yeah, this was perfect for the film, and it really kind of fit. There's lots of kind of different demo versions of Crazier, but the one that was included on the soundtrack and was officially released is definitely my favourite. So I'm glad that they kind of went with that direction. I really quite like Crazier. It just feels there's just a lot of nostalgia and kind of innocence to that song. How are you feeling about the possibility of this song being re-recorded? I know that it's been discussed a lot about whether this is going to be included on debut Taylor's version. So how are you feeling about that?
So initially some people discussed it when they saw that Today Was a Fairytale was featured on Fearless, Taylor's version, but Crazier wasn't, even though it had been released in 2009. However, as we discussed, Taylor wrote it right back when she was 13, so it would have more chances of being included in debut Taylor's version, as you mentioned. However, I personally don't think it's going to happen. It was released under the Walt Disney label with the Hannah Montana the movie soundtrack. So she doesn't really have that much of a reason to do it because it's not under Big Machine. However, it would be a nice addition to debut for sure, but there's a lot of unreleased songs that I'd rather get before Crazier.
Really? Oh no, see, I would love.
Mm.
I have some weird nostalgia. When I was at school, that was when like Hannah Montana was massive and
Yeah,
everyone watched it. Everyone watched. I remember going to so many birthday parties and sitting and watching the Hannah Montana movie, and so it just I don't know. I have quite a lot of like nostalgia with that film, and I don't know. I just love Crazy. I would love it to be included on debut because weirdly, even though obviously it was released in 2009, I do see it in the debut kind of
it does
world
make more
more
sense. Yeah,
than the
the
Fearless.
themes, the
Yeah,
lyrics, it makes more sense for debut, which
yeah.
makes sense because she wrote it back before debut.
But yeah, I do agree that the fact that it's kind of owned by Disney rather than Big Machine, I think that its chances are quite slim in terms of being re-recorded. So I'm really not too sure, but I would love to see it. It's kind of a bit like a Ronan or Today Was a Fairy Tale kind of inclusion, rather than
Mm.
being a vault song, obviously. Just to be included on there, I think would be quite nice. But there is, like you said, a lot of unreleased songs from that period. So I feel like it's got kind of strong competition to go up against. So the next song is You'll Always Find Your Way Back Home, which was also included on the Hannah Montana the movie soundtrack in 2009. So this was written for the film, however the song is performed by Hannah Montana, who is obviously played by Miley Cyrus. So the song was written by Taylor and Martin Johnson, who is the frontman of the band Boys Like Girls, who have another collab with Taylor called Two Is Better Than One. So in an interview for MTV, Johnson described working with Taylor when he said she's awesome, she's one of the most talented songwriters in the world to work with. For such a young girl, she's so creative and she's so spot on. She knows the audience and she truly understands the kind of pop music that is from the heart and done in a tasteful way. Lyrically, the song is about kind of staying grounded and going back to one's roots, and the song is featured in the kind of closing number of the movie. But like we said, Taylor does not sing on this song. Miley Cyrus sings the kind of vocals. However, the song did really well on the charts as well and peaked at number 81 on the Billboard Hot 100. The song was also shortlisted for the Best Original Song at the 82nd Academy Awards, however, it was not nominated. So, how do you feel about You'll Always Find Your Way Back Home?
In comparison to Crazier, it's very different. Obviously, it has a different message, different feel, and much more pop, just as the songwriters described. But yeah, it's a really, really great song. And for a long time, a lot of people didn't know that this song was written by Taylor. So it's interesting to see how such a loved song actually comes from her. And I would love, love, love to hear her version someday. Just like her, even if it's like an early demo of
Demo,
her
yeah.
singing it, or I wish she had done a performance at some point of this song, because I don't think it will be re-recorded as it was given to another artist, and above that, again, it's under the label of Walt Disney. But what do you think?
Yeah, no, I agree that this song, again, it was kind of like almost like a hidden, it was almost like one of those songs that only now everyone knows it's written by Taylor, but for a couple of years it was almost like, oh, I didn't know that, it was kind of like a not common knowledge that she wrote it. But I think, yeah, it's a really cool song. It works perfectly for the kind of Hannah Montana soundtrack world, and it received a lot of positive kind of critical reviews saying that it was perfect for the soundtrack and the film's kind of audience, and it works the themes, and this one, unlike Crazier, was written for the film, and you can really, really tell that from
You
the
can tell.
lyrics.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do agree that I don't think, in comparison to I think out of the two, Crazier has more chance of being re-recorded than You'll Always Find Your Way Back Home. But it would be really cool to hear Taylor's vocals on it because it's kind of there's kind of a bit more chanty and singy. So I'd really like to hear her kind of like stronger vocals on it, and yeah, maybe even just a demo would be really, really cool to hear. But unfortunately, I think the likelihoods are quite slim.
Next up, we have Today Was a Fairytale, which was featured in the movie Valentine's Day in 2010. So this was another song that was written solely by Taylor, and she had written it in the summer of 2008 and then stored it away for a while. Once she was cast as Felicia Miller for the film Valentine's Day, she thought that it would be a good idea to propose this song to the filmmakers, as she thought that it could be a good fit. The filmmakers obviously agreed. It had a lot of general positive reviews from critics. However, some believed that the lyrical content was very, very similar to her previous singles at that time, Love Story, You Belong With Me, and 15. Today Was a Fairytale debuted at number 2 on the Billboard Hot 100. It was blocked from number 1 by Kesha's TikTok, which makes sense because that was such a big song back then. Today Was a Fairytale is actually a really interesting song as well because it had 325,000 digital downloads, which broke the record for the largest first week downloaded sales by a female artist, which at that point was previously set by Britney Spears' Womanizer.
Yeah, it's mad that Today Was a Fairy Tale was kind of the song that kind of broke that record because, in comparison to kind of Taylor's other songs around that time, which were like huge hits, because the record is now held by Adele with her like 2015 single Hello, which sold 1.11 million downloads in its first week. But Today Was a Fairy Tale was the one that held onto that record for a couple of years, which is really nice.
Today Was a Fairy Tale was performed during a medley at the 52nd Grammy Awards, and it became quite an infamous performance as Taylor's vocals were criticized quite a lot.
So this performance with Stevie Nicks kind of led to the inspiration and then creation of Mean, which is interesting that Today Was a Fairy Tale kind of had such a the fact that it like broke digital download sales and then a performance of it then unintentionally created another Taylor Swift song. So Today with a Fairy Tale kind of has this kind of bigger life to the Taylor Swift world than you might initially think. That performance has become quite infamous because of the criticism that Taylor received, and that performance was not bad by any stretch of the imagination. Things come down to nerves, and it must have been incredibly nerve-wracking to be performing at the Grammys anyway, but also to be
Mm,
performing with someone like
with
Stevie
Stevie Nicks,
Nicks,
yes.
such a like kind of iconic performer. And also Taylor's and Stevie's vocals are quite different, and then obviously the pressure of then having to perform Today Was a Fairy Tale, You Belong With Me, as well as a kind of Stevie Nicks song. So I think it was, and also Taylor was really young at that point, so I think it was incredibly unfair that some people were kind of ripping such a young artist apart for just clearly just on stage nerves. In the end, we got Mean out of it, so it was positive in the end. And then Taylor got to go back to the Grammys and perform Mean
Mean,
at
yeah,
the
that is
Grammys
great.
and then win a Grammy for that song.
Full Mean.
So in the end, as ever, Taylor won, and she was the one with the last laugh.
This song was included because it was released under the label of Big Machine. So because of that, it makes sense that Taylor wanted to re-record it. And then she placed it on Fearless. So how do you feel about her placing it on Fearless and not on Debut? Did you think it was a good placement?
Yeah, no, I think it was quite a good placement. I think that, like Taylor said, that the reason why she offered it to Valentine's Day was because she felt like it didn't fit the upcoming album Speak Now. So clearly, she didn't want it to be included on Speak Now. Also, it was part of the Fearless Tour set list, so it was kind of released in the kind of Fearless universe and was written in 2008. So it was written around the time of the other songs on Fearless, so it's definitely kind of in that Fearless universe. And I think sometimes, even with the inclusion of things like Mr. Perfectly Fine and stuff, songs that were written outside of the kind of
Fearless time.
original Fearless timeline of when the album was released. But then I think now when Taylor looks back at these eras, she sees, even while the era was kind of coming about, she includes kind of songs that were written around, the kind of release week or the tour time of that album that
Right.
was still because I think Taylor has said before that when she's writing, sometimes sometimes the songs she's writing still fit on the first album, or on the album, sorry, that had just come out. So with like Red and stuff. Again, what's quite interesting is that Today with the Fairy Tales inclusion on Fearless has then led to now lots of discussion about what else is going to be included on the other vaults, with all of these kind of soundtracks, and we'll get
Yeah.
into those as we explain them. But that inclusion has now led to, oh well, what about Crazier, and what about You'll Always Find Your Way Back Home. So it's interesting because it's kind of brought in the debate of, is it just the songs that Big Machine own, or is it kind of all the songs? Okay, so the next song is Safe and Sound, which was included on the Hunger Games soundtrack in 2012. So Taylor wrote the song with the Civil Wars and T-Bone Barnett. So the song was written in a full night of 2011, and Barnett and the production team, as well as Taylor and the Civil Wars, came to his house in Los Angeles to write the lyrics of the song, and after just 2 hours the song was finished. So Taylor described the song's creation by saying that the Civil Wars had a show that night in LA, so they raced right over to T-Bone's house. There were so many things he could have done production-wise to make the song sound bigger sonically than it is, but I think that it would have been a mistake. For him to have left the song as a lullaby is brilliant. So after Taylor posted a portion of the song's lyrics via Twitter on the 22nd of December 2011, just 4 days later, the song was officially released digitally on the iTunes Store. The song received near universal acclaim from music critics who massively praised Taylor's breathy vocals and the simplicity of the music and its lyrics. Also at the 2012 Country Music Association Awards, Safe and Sound was nominated for the Musical Event of the Year, also had a CMT Music Award nomination for Collaboration of the Year. And the song was then nominated for Best Original Song at the 70th Golden Globe Awards in 2013, but it unfortunately lost to Adele's Skyfall. But at the 2013 Grammy Awards, Safe and Sound received a nomination for Best Country Duo/Group Performance. However, it lost that, but did win for Best Song Written for Visual Media Award. The song also peaked and debuted at number 30 on the Billboard Hot 100. So this song was incredibly successful, winning a Grammy, and rightfully so.
Safe and Sound is a very interesting song because it shows the early writings of Taylor being able to tell a story from someone else's perspective. So she really, really puts herself into Katniss's skin. And the same with Eyes Open. Both of them have amazing stories that are told, and they're very much told by Taylor, but you can see that they're very much about this other character.
Yeah.
And this like way of writing and this infusion of herself, but also the character into her songwriting very much can be seen in Folklore and Evermore. So these songs are really, really early precursors to that, and they show that she's so good at writing that way.
Yeah, I think what's interesting as well is when Folklore was announced and we saw the album cover and Taylor kind of told us about the album's themes and stuff, was that lots of people were like, oh my gosh, this is going to sound like Safe and Sound. And I think that that's really interesting because it definitely does have that kind of vibe that, you know, the song is sung by Taylor but not from her perspective at all. And I think, yeah, Safe and Sound was our kind of first kind of experience of that, really, that it was kind of a song that wasn't from Taylor's experience, and it was something that she had stepped into kind of another character's shoes and sung. Taylor has said that the song can kind of be seen as Katniss singing to Rue or singing to Prim, and the lullaby aspect of the song also works perfectly with the kind of Hunger Games world. Within the Hunger Games, you have a lot of kind of lullaby songs. With the Hanging Tree and Into the Meadow.
Another interesting parallel with Folklore and Evermore is that the soundtrack to the Hunger Games movie really had a lot of indie artists on it, like a lot of alternative sounding music. The Civil Wars, their music is quite alternative as well. So it was interesting that this was her first foray into that kind of musical genre before Folklore and Evermore. So to see so many years previous how she'd already kind of like dipped her toe into it and then completely went a different way for her personal music is interesting how she could bring it back. And these songs really, really stand the test of time.
Also, during the Australian leg of the Speak Now tour, Taylor added Safe and Sound to the tour's set list. In addition, she's also performed the song with the Civil Wars, which is an absolutely gorgeous performance. Taylor's kind of in a yellow dress, and I think it's become quite a famous performance because of how incredible her vocals sound, and they sound just like they do on the studio version that's on the soundtrack. In addition, Taylor has also performed the song at the Red Tour in Philadelphia. So the song is included in the end credits of the movie and is obviously on the soundtrack. Even though we've kind of said our thoughts, do you think that this song is going to be re-recorded? And if so, where? Because obviously, like Today Was a Fairytale, it was kind of in the end of the Today Was a Fairytale was at the end of the Fearless era, and this is kind of the end of the Speak Now early Red era. But obviously it was performed on the Speak Now tour, just a bit like Today Was a Fairytale was on Fearless tour. So how do you feel about possibility of re-recording?
I don't think it's very likely, unfortunately. I know that a lot of people have held out hope. And to be honest with you, I did feel if it would be anywhere, in my head, I've always kind of taken the Hunger Games soundtrack songs, the two of them, and placed them more towards Red than Speak Now. I guess because of their sound, don't think they'll be on Speak Now either, because of a few different reasons. In the case of sound, firstly, I'm not quite sure of the label it was released under, because though it does mention Big Machine in some descriptions, the Hunger Games soundtrack in general was under the label of Republic Universal, so I don't know how difficult that could be behind the scenes to try and re-record it again. I'm not quite sure. But the biggest problem is that the feature on this track, The Civil Wars, they are no longer together. They parted ways for good in 2014. They broke up like permanently. So I can't really see them getting back together to do something like this, unfortunately, because it is so, so sad. I love this song. I'd love to hear a re-recorded version, but I don't think it's going to happen.
Yeah, no, I do agree that I think the chances are quite slim, unfortunately. Personally, for me though, I've always felt like these songs have been in the Speak Now era. I don't know why.
She performed them during the tour and stuff, so
Yeah,
I get
I
that.
think,
Yeah.
but I totally see why people feel that they're very Red, with obviously Taylor had her kind of bangs at that point, and then also was performing some of the songs like Eyes Open when she did the like VH1 Storytellers performance, which has also become quite an iconic kind of performance of Eyes Open. So I see why people then feel like they're Red, and they were kind of released around a similar time of kind of Ronan and then We Are Never Ever Getting Back Together. And also, to be fair, they were written around the same time as a lot of the Red songs. Obviously, it was kind of written in like 2011 when lots of the kind of Red songs were being written. So I think that, yeah, it's strange that it wasn't included in Red. So obviously it wasn't. So it definitely isn't on Red. So I feel like, yeah, its only chances are Speak Now, but I do agree that I think that these songs are owned by kind of Republic and Universal, a bit like with the Hannah Montana songs. So I think that the chance of Safe and Sound being re-recorded is unlikely. And like you said, especially with the Civil Wars no longer being a band, I think that it would be a shame not to have their vocals on there. But maybe Taylor might possibly be able to just get one of them on there, or neither, and just decide to use someone else's backing vocals. So yeah, I'm not too sure with this one, but I think if I was to bet on it, I would probably say unfortunately it wouldn't be re-recorded.
The second song that Taylor wrote for the Hunger Games soundtrack was Eyes Open, which was also released in 2012. Though it was written for the soundtrack, it was never included in the film itself, unlike Safe and Sound. So it was released as the second single from the soundtrack, and it first premiered during a performance in Auckland for her Speak Now World Tour. Before she went into the song, she told the crowd, "I'm really excited about it, but I mean, you don't think I'd get into trouble if I played it now? Probably not, right?" And then she played it. The song was unfortunately leaked before its official release date of March the 20th, 2012. Once again, Taylor described the song as being written from Katniss's perspective of her relationship with the Capitol. She described it as the opposite of the melancholic sound of Safe and Sound, saying that it was much more frantic, fast-paced, and completely different shade of music. An interesting quote that Taylor gave to Rolling Stone back in 2012 is that she found it so enjoyable to be able to write from the perspective of a fictional character, in this case, obviously Katniss, rather than writing confessional songs about her own life. So she said that slipping into her mind was such a wonderful break. It's pretty intense writing about my own life, my own struggles. This quote is really, really interesting from our perspective now, because of obviously we know of Folklore and Evermore and how she was able to write from all of these, fictional perspectives, and she found that so freeing.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that it's really interesting that Taylor kind of said this back kind of during early Red era, late Speak Now era. And I think that Taylor's been really wanting to kind of do something like Folklore and Evermore for a really long time and write from different people's perspectives. And I think that this was the first kind of opportunity where Taylor realised, oh my gosh, I really enjoyed that. And it was so nice to not have to worry about, writing too personally and then it just becoming clickbait magazine kind of article headlines and stuff. And I think especially during the Love It era when Taylor kind of really drew a kind of clear line between her private and public life and wanted to live more of a private life in her current relationship, then probably maybe looking back on things like this, she realised, oh no, I want to do that now. I want to do Folklore and Evermore and write from different people's perspectives. So it's really interesting that Safe and Sound kind of was Taylor's first dip into kind of folk music, folk kind of alternative indie music, and then was also her first dip into the water of kind of writing about other people's experience. And then obviously she then kind of went totally into that water with like Folklore and Evermore.
Eyes Open, just like Safe and Sound, also garnered a lot of positive critical acclaim. Most of the critics favorably noted that the song was much more rock orientated comparing to her previous releases. In 2012, Eyes Open also won the Choice Single by a Female Artist at the Teen Choice Awards. It debuted on the Billboard Hot 100 at number 19, and it was the highest charting single from all of the Hunger Games movies until it was surpassed by James Newton Howard, featuring vocals from Jennifer Lawrence, which peaked at number 12 on the Billboard Hot 100. So this song is kind of in the same situation. It seems to be owned by Big Machine. However, at the same time, I've read up that it was released under Universal Republic, so I'm not sure how much each company or how much each label has stakes into this song. And because of that, we can't really be sure of who exactly owns the masters and how much of a percentage each of them have. So I'm not quite sure if it'll be re-released. In my opinion, once again, I'm not too sure. I feel like if Safe and Sound isn't there. I don't know if Eyes Open could be there, but how do you feel?
I think that, yeah, if one isn't, then the other isn't. I think that, yeah, it's either both or none. I
Right.
think it'd be really strange to have one on there and not the other. Just be quite strange to have only done one. So yeah, I feel like it's either all or nothing. And I would really, really love to hear, especially Eyes Open, this kind of slightly more rocky song, and Safe and Sound as well. I think that, as we've discussed in our previous episodes, the way that Taylor really enhanced on songs like Sad, Beautiful, Tragic on the Red Taylor's Version album, because that song kind of being, again, quite similar to the kind of folklore, the way that Taylor sings on folklore, she really kind of added a more kind of haunting, sad feel to it. And I think that with if she did re-record Safe and Sound, she would just do such a good job of that. Okay, so the next song is Sweeter Than Fiction, which was included in the movie One Chance in 2013. So the song was written by Taylor and Jack, and this was actually their first song together. So the song was featured in the end credits of the movie, however, it was released on the 21st of October in 2013. Interestingly, though, however, after its release, Taylor kind of admitted that she really had to fight with her label to allow them to release Sweeter Than Fiction, as she kind of tries to maintain a bit of a dormant period between album releases. So Big Machine kind of reportedly told Taylor that there was no more music until the next album comes out. However, Taylor kind of explained to them that after seeing the film that she really, really wanted to be a part of it. So Taylor said, I had to fight to do this because I tried to take a break in between albums and tried to give people a minute to not hear me on the radio. I had to go around and ask people, can I please, please, please put something out, even though we're supposed to be quiet. So I find that quite interesting that there was a couple of times that Taylor spoke quite publicly about having to kind of push back
Push for
against
things.
Big Machine. And I think that, again, it was interesting that this was around the same time as when she was probably having to start pushing for 1989, that Big Machine were really starting to kind of get a bit stubborn.
Tired.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because obviously she had to push for Sweeter Than Fiction, and then obviously had to
Then her
really push.
direction,
Yeah,
yeah,
then
for
had to really push for
1989.
1989. And I wonder as well, maybe whether this was around the time when Taylor realised that she wanted to own her masters. So was maybe
Right.
trying to maybe have those discussions as well. I think back in the day, we always kind of thought that her relationship with kind of Big Machine and Scott was always very positive. And I think looking back, Taylor had made that very clear that there was kind of differing kind
Yeah,
of opinions.
opinions to how, especially for, well, I mean, even we can take this back, right, to Speak Now and how, she proposed calling it Enchanted, and it was kind of, though I think that was kind of just like a small thing in the,
Me too,
in
yeah.
the, in the scale of things, looking back. But from Red onwards, I do think she had to fight with a lot of things,
Me
just because
too.
she had a different direction in mind to what they had for her, I do think.
I definitely agree, and I think that, yeah, when you look back, you can kind of see that there was kind of differing opinions, and also it was interesting that Taylor did speak so openly about having to fight back again. Normally people don't really
Yeah.
talk about stuff like that because they don't want to upset their label or annoy them
Mm.
by kind
But we
of
kind of just
publicly.
overlooked it because
Yeah,
Taylor always said it kind of in a, oh, I had to push quite a lot, but it's fine because
yeah,
it's out now. The same as
yeah.
with 1989. It was all like fun and games and jokes between them. But obviously, you can now looking back with the information that we have in mind, Taylor kind of wanted to take things in one direction and they were kind of pulling her away from that. Whereas now, she's not going to have many problems when she wants to release things, as
No,
we can
yeah.
see. It's
Yeah,
just up to her, really.
like we've said with kind of Republic, they kind of let Taylor really do anything. And what was interesting
Mm.
was that when she talked about folklore, she talked very tentatively about having to. She was worried about how they were going to be, really having to almost like champion it and be like,
Mm.
look, this is why. Whereas she kind of presented a Republic with folklore, being tentative, thinking, oh gosh, it's not a pop record, it hasn't got a big lead single, it's a different sound, it's going to be released differently, it's going to be released during lockdown. But then they were like, yeah, we're down for that. I think that
Mm.
that's what's
That's
really
such a
nice now.
positive, yeah, that's such a
Yeah,
positive thing for her that she's
yeah,
got people to back her up. And obviously, it's because she is who she is, and
yeah,
not everyone would get that same treatment. But it's still nice that at least she can have her creative freedom with
yeah.
things.
She has
And if
more
she wants to
creative
release
direction. Yeah.
something, that's fine.
Okay, so back to Sweeter Than Fiction. When Taylor talked about the inspiration for the song's kind of lyrics and content, she said that she was incredibly inspired by the concept of love. And in this movie in specific, there was lots of ways that love was explored between the story of Paul Potts and his wife. So Taylor said that the story really hit me and really affected me, and I wanted to tell a story musically from that perspective. So the song debuted at 34 on the Billboard Hot 100, and it was nominated for the Best Original Song at the 71st Golden Globe Awards. So again, how do you feel about the possibility of this song being re-recorded, and what are your thoughts about the song in general anyway?
amazing job of taking someone's perspective, taking someone's story, and really putting herself in the place of that person and seeing things from their perspective, but always imbuing it with her own, her own experiences as well, which is something that you can really feel. And that's why Taylor's songs like these, even though they're not about her, come across so sincere. That's why I think she's always going to do such a good job at songs from different perspectives and movie songs.
Yeah.
But yeah, this was definitely very different to what we had heard from her previously up until that point. And her first time working with Jack, which, as we
Yes.
know, has led to so much more, which I'm so pleased about. It's such a great song. Again, it's strange how it was placed in the release timeline of releases, because obviously we can deem it as being part of the Red era. However, again, we didn't get it on Red Taylor's version, so if it is anywhere, which in my opinion this makes more sense, it would be on 1989 Taylor's version. Because for me, it's always been a part of her pop sound, but I know some people were expecting it to be on Red. So I don't know, how do you feel? Is it more Red? Is it more 1989?
I think so. First off, I love this song. Really, I've always loved Sweeter Than Fiction. I don't know why. There's just something, like you said, so fun and like just something, yeah, really sincere and fun about that song. So yeah, I love this song. And no, it's interesting that people wanted it on Red. And weirdly, I've always kind of felt like it was in the Red universe, a bit like kind of Safe and Sound and stuff being in Speak Now and Today Was a Fairytale being Fearless. But what's interesting is that the song was kind of a bit of a hint at kind of Taylor's pop direction and the sound that she would then take for 1989, because I do feel like this song is a bit of a mix of Red and 1989. In terms of Red songs, it gives me like Holy Ground, Starlight vibes, whereas for 1989, it kind of gives the kind of How You Get the Girl, I Wish You Would, and like you said, obviously Taylor worked with Jack, who she would then eventually work on a lot of the songs with 1989 and then albums following with. So yeah, this is kind of a bit of a bridge, and I do, thinking about it now, it probably sonically, even though it does kind of have kind of some callbacks to Red, it looks more forward to 1989. So yeah, it probably belongs on 1989 Taylor's version, and I think that yeah, it's likely to end up on there. But I do really love this song, and I do love that it was kind of. I'm really glad that it was released after Red, because it did bridge the gap a bit.
For sure.
And the next song that we're going to discuss is very similar in that its kind of role of bridging the gap in between eras and album sounds. But yeah, I think that I'm glad that Taylor pushed and Big Machine decided to let her release it.
Especially now that we have the Red Vault, we can
Yeah.
see that she was inching towards
Yes.
pop more and more. Although, of course, Red does include a lot
like
of pop
I Knew You Were Trouble
songs.
and 22
Yeah.
and yeah.
But this one was just that inch closer.
To the more kind of like synthy kind of 80s
Exactly.
feel, yeah,
Yeah,
of
the
pop
full
rather than
bombastic
yeah.
synth pop.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it was released under the Big Machine label, so I do feel that this one is the one that has the most chance out of all of the ones that we've discussed at being included in a re-recording.
The reason why I've always felt like it was Red song was because obviously the cover has a photo shoot from
Well, let's
has
face
an
it.
image from the Red photo
Yeah,
shoot.
and it was a year before 1989 came out, like
Yeah.
the whole album. So it makes sense to
Yeah.
feel like it is part of the Red era. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And what's quite sad though is that Taylor's never actually performed this song live. However, she has sung a snippet of the song acoustically for an interview. But hopefully, maybe one day in the future, some kind of tour event, if she does something similar to like she did with Reputation, where she kind of sung old songs that we get to hear kind of Taylor's sing this song live, or have her new vocals on the song if she does decide to re-record it for a Taylor's version. So yeah, I'm excited
I
about the
hope so.
possibility. I really hope so, and I think out of all the ones we've discussed so far,
This
from
is the one I want.
Crazier
Yeah.
and all the way to this, I think that this is the one that I really, really want.
Next up, just as Cameron said, we have another song that bridged a gap between eras. So we have I Don't Want to Live Forever, that was featured in the 50 Shades Darker movie in 2016. So this was written by Taylor, Jack, and Sam Drew, and it was released in December 2016 by Republic Records to international commercial success. People really, really enjoyed this song, so much so it debuted at number 6 on the Billboard Hot 100. Of course, it is a feature. Taylor sings alongside Zayn, and a music video of them singing it was also included on my birthday, the 27th of January 2017, on Taylor's official YouTube channel. The song was, of course, very well received, and it hinted at this much more darker kind of sound that Taylor was moving into. As we know, in 2017, she eventually released Reputation. Taylor has performed I Don't Want to Live Forever never with Zayn, always acoustically and on her own. This song received a lot of award nominations, and it even was nominated for a Grammy Award for Best Song Written for Visual Media. However, it didn't win that one, but it did win in 2017 the MTV Millennial Award for Best Collaboration of the Year and the MTV Video Music Award for Best Collaboration, as well as in 2018 winning the BMI Awards award-winning songs and the iHeartRadio Awards Titanium Award. This song was released, as we mentioned, under the Republic Records label, so it probably won't be re-recorded. However, if you want to hear more about our opinions on this song and if we think it could be included or not inside of the Reputation Vault, then do check out our episode on the Reputation Vault and Reputation Taylor's version.
So the next song is Beautiful Ghost, that was written for the Cats musical movie in 2019. So the song was written by Taylor and the Cats creator Andrew Lloyd Webber. So the song was released on the 15th of November 2019. However, in the film, the song is sung by the character Victoria. However, the single that was released was sung by Taylor. The official single release version is actually the one that also plays at the end credits of the movie. Much like some of the previous songs that we've mentioned, Taylor kind of stepped into the shoes of the character Victoria and sung from her perspective. So the song follows the song Memories. The character kind of looks back at the song Memory and then kind of sings about longing for a sense of belonging and wanting to have those memories and reaching for the beautiful ghost of the memories that the previous character was singing about. So yeah, I think this song is another kind of perfect example and great example of how Taylor can kind of tune into another character's kind of psychology and create a really vivid story from their perspective. And interestingly, in 2021, Andrew Lloyd Webber said that writing Beautiful Ghost with Taylor was the only enjoyable part of working in Cats. And even though Cats, the movie itself, didn't receive very positive reviews, this song did, because Taylor's vocals were praised and her kind of songwriting ability, and it was actually nominated for a Grammy. And also what's quite interesting was in the Cats film itself, Taylor's performance, in comparison to the rest of the film, was really heavily positively kind of reviewed. And I think that Taylor's involvement in Cats, I think, unlike anyone else involved in Cats, I think she looks on it back quite positively. I think she really enjoyed the kind of Cat school and the kind of musical element and working with Andrew Lloyd Webber and writing Beautiful Ghost. I think that it's quite sad that the kind of general public kind of ruined Cats a bit, and it's kind of messy release.
Yeah,
you know,
it's
I think
it was a moment. Let's just say that for sure.
it was. I think it was. Yeah, it had an odd release,
but I think she enjoyed it because of that. And again, I think she also enjoyed the experience a lot, just like Andrew Lloyd Webber did, because of creating this song. And unfortunately, because of how the film was received, this song is sometimes not taken very seriously. But it is a really, really good song. In fact, I think it could be easily featured in the stage version of the show as,
yes.
a moment between the contrasting events and the contrasting feelings between Victoria, such a young cat, and then the Song of Memories, which is it's linked so well by Taylor, but at the same time expresses a very different feeling.
Yes.
So again, like we said, she just does an amazing job putting herself in these characters' perspectives and really, really describing things really well from them.
And also, which is important to mention, is that in the soundtrack as well, Taylor also sings the song McCavity alongside Idris Elba. However, that song was not written by Taylor. That was included in the original Cats musical, was written by Andrew Lloyd Webber instead. So that's why we haven't included it in this list. But it is still in the film. How do you feel about McCavity while we're quickly discussing it?
That is the performance that Taylor was really, really well reviewed on. We know the vocals were live recorded, so I think both Idris and Taylor do a really, really good job. And also something really, really notable about that is that she is singing in a British accent.
British accent, yes.
Yeah.
A bit like with Beautiful Ghost, to be fair. It's quite strange.
Albeit she does slip in and out at times, and you can hear her going back into an American one for some words. But that must have also been quite a challenge to keep up that accent as you're singing at the same time and performing. So I really enjoyed that song and the performance that she does, to be honest with you.
I think it is really interesting how these kind of movies and stuff kind of gave Taylor new things that giving her new perspectives on music that she wouldn't necessarily had if she hadn't been involved. Like we said with the Hunger Games, that was kind of the first time where she dipped her toe into writing from a different character's perspective. Then obviously she got to do that again with Sweeter Than Fiction, and then with Beautiful Ghost again. and then also having to sing in a different accent. It's just you kind of got new different experiences and ways of singing and writing lyrics and stuff from all of these different films. And I think that's what's quite cool that, that Taylor kind of took out from these different experiences.
This next song is not really an original soundtrack song. However, it belongs to a documentary. This is Only the Young, which was of course released with Taylor's own documentary, Miss Americana, in 2020. This song kind of feels like a Lover reject in a way, as it was produced with Joel Little, who collaborated with Taylor on Lover. And it's mostly described as a protest song. It discusses a lot of political subjects such as school shootings, Donald Trump's administration, vote tampering concerns, and other things in its lyrics. In a way, it has been compared to Miss Americana and the Heartbreak Prince. It was praised by a lot of musical critics because of its lyricism that represented the United States political climate at that time. And it is Taylor's most politically charged song as of right now. Only the Young won the People's Choice Award for the Best Soundtrack Song of 2020, so that's kind of why we have to really include it, as though it wasn't a film release and it was kind of like a documentary soundtrack, it still was really well received and won an award for it. And then it was also used in a video advert for the Biden-Harris campaign in the USA in 2020 as well, becoming quite a big political song, which is kind of what Taylor initially intended for it. So how do you feel about Only the Young? Did you enjoy it? Have you gone back to it much?
Yeah, no, I quite like Only the Young. I just always quite like the beat of it. I don't know why. But yeah, I generally do quite like Only the Young. It's not one that I go back to regularly, but it's definitely in my favourites playlist. Joe Little's daughter's voices in the background towards the end of the song, I think just sound really cool. There's just something that I quite like about the sound. Some of the stuff, again, this might be a controversial opinion, but it is my opinion. Some of the ways that Joe Little kind of produced some of the songs on Lover, I'm not a big fan of, but I do really like Only the Young. I think that it works quite well, and I'm glad that it wasn't included on the Lover album. I'm glad that it was kind of a standalone song. It's interesting that obviously it was released right at the start of the year before we knew what 2020 would entail in terms of worldwide and Taylor music. So it was kind of the last kind of song that we really got before folklore, which is mad. But yeah, I do quite like Only the Young. How do you feel about it?
Again, I don't feel like this song bridges any gaps between Lover and
No.
Folklore, which is so strange because Folklore in that sense came so out of the blue. Although as we've seen, we had these previous songs from Taylor that we know that she can write from amazing different perspectives. However, this one really reminds me more of Lover. And like I said, in a way, it feels like a reject because it didn't fit the theme. I think what you said was very clear, like that is why it wasn't on Lover.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it discusses things that she was exploring. I also really enjoy it. I love the inclusion of Joel's daughters in the background, though I know a lot of people don't.
It's strange because it doesn't really feel like a soundtrack song for me. And when I think about
I guess
the
because
Hunger
it
Games ones and
is
stuff,
documentary kind of. There's no fiction
about Taylor.
at all
Yeah.
about it. Yeah.
Yeah, but
It's unfortunately
it's
very,
different.
very real. Finally, we reach the song that has inspired this episode and is the reason that we're going over all of the previous soundtrack songs. This song is Carolina, which will be featured in the upcoming Where the Crawdads Sing movie in 2022. So the lyrics that we have gotten from the snippet, which Taylor teased and spoke about on Instagram this past week, are: "You didn't see me here, they never did see me here. There are places that I'll never ever go, things that only Carolina will ever know." There's also a small snippet before some of the trailers that can be found on YouTube that basically is just this bombastic moment of Taylor saying, "They never saw me." The film is going to be out in July, but we don't know when the song may be out. It could be before. I mean, looking at how the other songs worked, most of them did come out at the same time or a similar moment to their films. So I feel like we're maybe not going to hear the whole thing until July. How are you feeling about that?
Yeah, I'm not too sure. I think with some of the others, like the Hunger Games Safe and Sound, that was released a couple of months before the eventual Hunger Games
True.
film release. So maybe we might get it before. And I think Sweeter Than Fiction was the same. Yeah, because obviously Taylor said that we will be hearing it soon.
Soon.
But obviously, like we discussed in our previous episode, there's lots of rumours about the possibility of a new re-recorded album. So Speak Now or 1989 Taylor's version or Debut Taylor's version. Which I think lots of us would have expected an announcement for by now. And I think if if this is the next thing that we're going to get and it doesn't come out to July, I think the likelihood of getting 2 re-recorded albums this year would be quite slim at that point. Lots of people were expecting a different kind of announcement. I don't think they were expecting new Taylor music. They were expecting re-recorded. So I'm
Yeah,
really
it was
not too sure.
surprising.
Yeah,
It was surprising to see this type of announcement. I didn't expect it when I went on and saw everything was going down. I did think it was going to be for a re-recording, but it's still an interesting way to give us something while we wait, let's just
yeah,
say.
yeah, definitely. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, it's I'm very very excited to hear this song. Obviously, it's a solo Taylor Wright, which like
Amazing.
everyone loves a solo Taylor Wright. It's also produced by Aaron Dessner, who described the song as a haunting song and said that it was one of his favorite songs that Taylor has ever written, which is obviously
Wow.
really exciting. And Aaron has done such a good job with kind of crafting Taylor's sound in the last couple of years, so I'm really glad that she's still working with him. So I'm really, really excited to hear it. And obviously, there's rumours that apparently it's going to be over 7 minutes long,
Yeah.
which is also really exciting. And that may be slightly due to the fact that All Too Well 10 Minute did so well, and Taylor's kind of realised that songs don't need a 3 minute 35 timestamp, to be successful, and that fans want longer songs, they want longer stories. And the
Hmm.
fact that this again is another song that Taylor's writing from a character's perspective. I think that the fact that the film slash book is obviously about a kind of someone being framed for murder. It the fact that it's maybe a 7 minute long song is that it kind of tells the story of the character and kind of follows the kind of timeline of the book and the film. So I'm really really intrigued to hear it. I'm really excited. Obviously, what we've heard so far kind of gives no body, no crime vibes.
For
So
sure.
I'm
Yeah.
very excited to hear that. How do you feel about it?
Yeah, so the song is definitely going to be very interesting. Without giving any spoilers for the film, it will probably be told from the perspective of the main character, Kaya. And as we've said, Taylor's gotten very, very good at describing and telling stories from other perspectives, especially the ones that she can kind of relate with. So even though obviously she's not relating to anyone being framed for
Yeah,
murder,
mass murder, yeah, or murder in general, yeah.
yeah, she could relate to Kaya as someone who's very much ostracized and is someone who is teased and is not ever accepted into the community where she lives. Again, don't want to go too far into the plot because I don't want to give any spoilers. But from that perspective, I think Taylor can kind of take some of her experiences, in her younger years, put them together. And again, she's gotten so good, especially with folklore and evermore, at telling all of these crazy stories that I really think that this is going to be one of the best ones that she's done for a soundtrack.
Me too. I'm really really excited for this. I think the snippets that we've heard as well, which is quite interesting, give massive Lana Del Rey, early Lorde kind of vibes. I think the Lorde song that it kind of really sounds similar to for me is "Everyone Wants to Rule the World," which ironically was another Hunger Games soundtrack song that was included on the Catching Fire soundtrack. Again, it's in Taylor's lower register, which is Taylor does such a good job of. So I'm so excited to hear this song, and especially if the rumors are true that it's over 7 minutes long, that is so exciting. Because I
It's
feel
funny
like if it is, it's going to be a proper story.
with solo written songs by Taylor, she does tend to make them longer. I mean, we can only have
Longer,
to think
yeah.
of Speak Now. This is a Speak Now tease in a way because Speak Now is includes so many songs that are over 6 minutes long,
Yeah.
and you could never tell when you listen to them. Like I
No.
don't listen to
Dear John or Last
Dear
Kiss?
John, Last Kiss, exactly, and I don't feel like they drag on. I really
No.
honestly think that they pass by. Even Enchanted is like
Yes.
6 minutes. It's crazy to think that. So if that is true, that it is over 7 minutes long, I can't wait because she's going to tell a really good story.
Yes.
From the lyrics that we have, obviously we don't have much, but we can tell that she's speaking from the main character's perspective. And the interesting thing, and obviously the name of the song is Carolina, which we know probably makes reference to North Carolina, which is where the book is based. So it all takes place in North Carolina. So again, metaphorically turning Carolina into a character, but referring to a geographical place.
Okay, so we've come to the end of this episode. Thank you very much for listening. If you did enjoy, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel at Swiftly Spoken Podcast and give us a review on Apple, Spotify, and Amazon. as well, and make sure that you follow us over on our Instagram page, which is also @SwiftySpokenPodcast.